Sudan is an African country located in northeastern Africa. It is bordered by Egypt to the north, Libya to the northwest, Chad to the west, the Central African Republic to the southwest, South Sudan to the south, Ethiopia to the southeast, and Red Sea to the east. Ever since its independence in 1956, Sudan has seen conflicts, civil wars, and coups. In April this year, two leaders of the country got engaged in a violent clash which can lead to a civil war. In this podcast, we will try to understand the current conflict while taking a look at Omar al-Bashir, the Darfur conflict, and the two groups which are fighting for supremacy currently. The sources which were used in the research of this podcast are listed in the description. Omar al-Bashir. Omar al-Bashir came to power in 1989 amid a civil war between the northern and southern regions of the country. The northern part is dominated by Muslims, while the southern part is dominated by Christians, along with other groups who follow traditional African religions. The differences were due to religious, ethnic, and economic differences. The people of South Sudan felt that they were discriminated against by the Arab rulers in the north and hence wanted freedom. In 2003, while Bashir was dealing with this civil war, another conflict started taking place in the west of Sudan, in Darfur. Historically, this region has been neglected with the lack of medical care and necessary goods and proper representation in politics and administration. These reasons left the Darfuris with agitation. With most of the army busy in south, the rebels saw this region as weak and attacked troops in the city of al-Bashir. Bashir responded by encouraging and supporting local Arab militias, Janjaweed, against the Darfuri rebels. This group was brutal in its nature. Human rights groups have accused the Janjaweed of war crimes, including tortures, killings, and rapes of civilians throughout the conflict. Enter Dagalo. He was born around 1974 into the Maharia tribe of the Rezikat community in Darfur, the nephew of a tribal chief in the camel trading branch of the Rezikat. He has little formal education, dropping out of his school in the third grade and later becoming a camel trader. The most common story about him is that he was compelled to take up arms in the Darfur conflict when men attacked his trade envoy, killed 60 members of his family, and looted his camels. He rose through the ranks, catching the eye of President Bashir when he was setting up the Janjaweed militias, and he even became a commander. Let's cut to the 2010s. 2011. We just saw that the northern and southern regions of Sudan were involved in a civil war with the southern region demanding independence. In 2011, South Sudan gained independence from Sudan following a referendum. However, there was a major issue which was coming for President Bashir's regime. With its independence, South Sudan gained 75% territory of Sudan's oil. Sudan's economy was hit hard, which was already strained by more than a decade of US sanctions. 2018. In late 2017, the US lifted some sanctions on Sudan. However, the economy continued to deteriorate, and by November 2018, inflation was at almost 70%. As the Sudanese pound plummeted in value, the government imposed emergency austerity measures and cut fuel and bread subsidies. This triggered waves of mass protests across the country in December. The protests were initially focused on living costs, but soon demonstrators also started demanding that President Bashir must step down. More than 1,000 protesters were reportedly detained by government forces. 2019. In February, Sudan's National Security and Intelligence Services said that President Bashir would step down. However, Mr. Bashir was defiant, declaring a national state of emergency, dismissing the federal government, and replacing all state governors with members of the security forces instead. He also tried to placate protesters, saying he would stand down at the end of his term in April 2021 and would not seek re election. However, this was not enough for the demonstrators, and critics argued he had previously pledged to step down and then gone back on his word. 2019 Revolution. Abdel Fattah al-Burhan was made the Inspector General of the Sudanese Armed Forces by President Bashir around the time of 2019 revolution. He always feared a coup and also kept Dagalo near him as a close ally. He believed that it would be difficult for a single group to stage a coup. However, Burhan and Dagalo worked together to overthrow Bashir at the end. Thousands of demonstrators reached the military headquarters, which is near the presidential compound, for the first time. Thousands camped outside throughout the week, and while security forces used tear gas and made arrests, the police ordered officers not to intervene against the citizens of peaceful rallies. The police said they supported the peaceful transition of power. According to analysts, the military and security forces were also divided on how to respond, with reports that army officers wanted to avoid violence while security chiefs and some paramilitary groups were ready to use lethal force. On the ground, some individual army units started intervening to protect protesters from security agents. On 11th April, the military announced that President Bashir had been ousted and arrested. Post 2019 evolution. Following the overthrow of President Bashir's regime, Al Burhan became the de facto leader of Sudan with Dagalo as his deputy. With military leaders in power, protests continued. After significant international pressure, the protesters and the military reached a power sharing agreement. A transitional council would be set up in which representatives from both the military and the protesters would participate. The military representatives would hold power for 21 months and civilians would hold power for 18. Burhan was the chair and Dagalo was the vice chair. A new Prime Minister, Abdullah Hamdok, was appointed. Initially, the council acted as per the deal. However, another coup took place in 2021 and Hamdok resigned in January 2022. This made Burhan the de facto leader and Dagalo as his second in command again. After another year of protests, the US, UAE, Saudi Arabia, and the UK pressured Burhan, Dagalo, and the protesters to sign another deal, which would lead to a civilian led transitional government by April 2023. However, Burhan and Dagalo disagreed over the integration of RSF into the Sudanese army. Burhan wanted it to happen after 2 years, while Dagalo wanted it to happen after 10. This caused a huge rift between Burhan and Dagalo, which led to the present day conflict. Major powers who are interested in Sudan. UAE. UAE has close links with both Dagalo and the SAF, where both Dagalo and the SAF have fought in Yemen from the UAE side against the Houthi rebels. It has made deals with the military government to secure ports and for access to minerals. Libya. Libya's warlord Khalifa Haftar has been a close ally of Dagalo. Dagalo even sent his troops to Libya to aid Haftar. Now, in the present conflict, Haftar is returning the favor by sending fuel shipments to the RSF and acting as a middleman to transfer supplies and weapons to the RSF on the behalf of Russia. Russia. Russian mercenary group, the Wagner Group, has links with Dagalo and the RSF, where they provide training to the RSF in exchange for access to the lucrative gold trade. Conclusion. The fight for supremacy between the generals has put the neighboring nations under pressure. Some of these states are under military rule, an unstable security situation, and economic trouble. Now, thousands of refugees from Sudan are streaming across the border to South Sudan, Chad, or to the Central African Republic, while the hopes of a democratic government and a dignified life for the common people of Sudan seem to be shattered. That's it for this podcast, guys. Thank you so much for choosing this podcast and giving me your precious time. Please like, share, and subscribe if you are on YouTube, and follow the podcast if you are on Spotify. I'll see you guys in the next one. Till then, goodbye.